Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Alex's Afternoon Art Show. Today, we are drawing Cyclops, and we're going to be talking about lighting again, even though we only talked about lighting in the last episode. Yeah, I suppose this is the second in our little lighting duology here. However, we're dealing with some slightly different lighting. Last time we were dealing with more sinister, intense lighting. Today we're dealing with, well, we're still dealing with intense lighting, but we're dealing with something, I suppose, less sinister. We're dealing with something which adheres more to a very specific color tone, being red. Because obviously last time we were dealing with something which was adhering to more of a thematic color tone, the color palette, I suppose, to the scene, to the piece. But today we're adhering more to a specific color tone, which is going to kind of, be kind of altering the colors of everything that's on the frame. So, yeah. Sorry, I nearly burped there in the middle of the intro, but yeah. So yeah, that's kind of what we're doing. Nothing crazy. Simple enough, but yeah, I'll stop dilly dallying and I'll just show you what I've got already. So yeah, roll the intro. Me from the future. Yeah. Alright, well, this is what I've got. And you'd think after doing over 100 episodes of this that I'd actually learn how to do an intro for once, but you know, I guess that's never happening. But anyways, so this is what I've got. As I said, we're going to be dealing with a lot of intense lighting here, and obviously because we've got the eye laser shooting out, that means we're going to have a lot of red soaking the scene here. The background is probably going to be like a near black color, but not quite black. And yeah, so I've gone for a bit of a redesign on Cyclops. He's mostly 90s Cyclops, but I've given him the trench coat, because I like the trench coat. I think it looks cool. I've given him the something sort of resembling the Wolverine and the X-Men trench coat, which is also kind of blended with a few different things to make it look more like slightly more 90s-ish. So there's elements of this trench coat which have got like bits and pieces of like the jacket that Cyclops sometimes had in the 90s, as well as a few little bits and pieces of some of the other X-Men jackets that would be around at the time. But yeah. Yeah, I mean, so I didn't want to add any extra X-Men logos because there's already two of them on his design as is. So I didn't want to have like one on his shoulder as well, because it's part of that design with the jacket is that it has these little patches on the shoulders which have the X-Men logo on them. But I don't want to include two. I don't want this man to look like he's literally just covered in. That he's like a NASCAR driver that he's covered in logos. But yeah, so largely I kind of wanted to mostly just do the 90s Cyclops design, but just throw a little bit of a spin on it because I like the 90s design mostly. That's the design which I like. But I've just added a few little bits of like some seams and stuff like that as well. He's still got the underpants, with those seams in them now a little bit. Which just kind of follow the motion of the rest of the lines. And yeah, so with the reference on this one, I have to do a little bit of work because I had to redo, I think, both arms. I don't remember because I don't have the reference anymore. But yeah, obviously I had to completely add this arm and everything like that because you don't often get people doing this. It's not the type of thing that people do with their hands all the time. So I had to hand draw that one in, and same with this hand here. And hands aren't the easiest thing in the world to draw, so you know it can take some time. But yeah, so when it comes to the eye laser, I'm not sure how I'm gonna do this. I think I'm probably gonna do it the same way I did the lightsabers before in a prior art video. So that means that I'm just going to do the detail lines as they are, and I'm not going to put a line on the laser. That is just going to be for later, where I'll basically color it in with white and then I will do glow layers to basically give it the shape. To give it the shape of a laser. However, I'm not going to be doing the any of the blur layers on this, because that wouldn't make much sense here. Because this should have a bit of a harder edge. I wouldn't be doing any sort of, like as I say, blur layers or anything like that. I wouldn't need them. But yeah, what else would I need to say? Mostly, I mean, the design is fairly self-explanatory. It's mostly just 90s design. Mostly just the 90s design. However, I'm going to have to draw hair today, meaning that this could take a while. It likely won't, because I don't have to draw a face. I don't have to draw his face, really. But yeah. I feel like there's something I need to kind of bring up here, but I mean, most of the lighting stuff, there's no real need to go super into it yet. I mean, obviously the lighting's going to be coming from the laser, meaning that he's going to have these red kind of shadows on, or these bits of kind of red being cast on the front of him, and then the back of him will be kind of more darkly lit. So it's kind of fairly self-explanatory in that sense. Not a huge amount, which I have to like really aggressively go over. But yeah, I mean, I used the trench coat here to kind of sell the kind of energy a little bit more. So obviously he's pulling his hand up quick, so the sleeve is being kind of pulled back like that on this hand, and then with this hand it's kind of like ruffling back because he's pulling his hand back. It's kind of like being pushed back like that, and then the coat itself is flaring open because there's the kind of energy of the scene. But yeah, as I say, there's kind of not a huge amount I actually really need to go over with this one. Largely speaking, it's mostly kind of self-explanatory. But I've gotten very used to doing about 10 minutes of rambling now, so I kind of don't know what to do now that I don't have to do it. But yeah, I don't know how long this one will take. This one shouldn't take too long, I don't think. But I mean, I've got a lot of wrinkling and stuff like that on the coat to deal with, but I suppose there aren't actually that many like little bits to things and everything. I don't know. Anyways, I think I'll just start, because I don't actually think there's much of a need to kind of dilly-dally here. Because it's nice sometimes to actually just get to the meat and potatoes of things. So yeah, I'll do that. I'll begin. And yeah, I think I'll just color the inside of his mouth in black. I don't think I actually need to bother doing that with anything like a yeah, I don't think I need to bother doing that with just a different color. I think we'll just do it in fully black. Anyways, I'll begin. Alright, that is our details done, so it is time to move on to the colours. That took a hell of a long time. We are 2 hours and 40 minutes into the recording already. And yeah, so I had to take I also took a lengthy break to eat. So yeah, this is where we're at. We're at this point now of where this... I might be able to get the rest of this finished, even though the details were a lengthy process, because realistically speaking, the rest of this isn't going to be that difficult, because there's very few other colors at play here. I can count them probably on one hand. So there's what, the skin, there's hair, there's yellow, there's blue, there's red. Oh, there's probably a little more than that. There's a few colors in here. But not so many that this will actually take that long, because most of them don't really occupy that much space. I don't know what color I'm going to make the coat. Coat could end up being black or brown. I'm not sure which would fit the color scheme better. I suppose I can experiment, but yeah, I'll see if this ends up getting finished, because realistically speaking, I could very much finish it, but I don't know if I necessarily have all the time in the world here to do that, so we'll see. I'll try and get it finished, but yeah, anyways, we got the colors to do, and yeah, I should probably throw in my background. I think for my background, I'm probably just going to do one color, and that'll be basically it. Probably a dark bluey color, something like this. Something like that. Probably gonna turn it off for now. I don't need it for now, but yeah. So what are we gonna do? I'm gonna give him kind of a moderate. What's this skin tone look like? It's a little pale. He's a little pale. I don't want to make him that pale. Go for something a little richer. Something like that, probably. I'll need to bring up one of my own drawings here just for the sake of reference. So yep, let's have a look at this. So yeah, this is maybe going to be quick, maybe going to be long. I'll probably just do the laser during this section because that won't take very long. It's pretty easy to do that because that's all straight lines, so pretty easy all in all. And yeah, really all it is I'll be getting a white brush going across like that, adding the squiggliness to it so that it looks like a proper laser, maybe throwing off some kind of sparking squiggly bits that come off and just go off into the distance, sort of like the way I do lightning. Just do stuff like that of where it kind of like sparks off and squiggles out and things like that. But yeah, realistically speaking, this it could be quick, could be long, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'll get on with it anyways. Okay, so that is our base colors done. So we've still got to do the painted shading and the detailed shading, and I've still got a few little bits to do with the laser. Because as it stands, obviously, for some reason the way that Photoshop renders detail, it just kind of gets weird at certain distances. Like, I hope that doesn't make anyone feel weird, but yeah, whenever you get to like certain distances, it just renders it weirdly. And that's just how it works for some reason. So whenever you get in closer, it obviously is much thinner with the outer glow. Both the glows, actually. Because the same with the inner glow, these like little blotches here where I left little holes by accident, which I'm just going to leave because I actually don't mind how it looks. Tell you what, I might actually just put little more of them in there, just because I kind of like the idea of having these little flaking bits in that. Because that is, that's kind of how it looks in the comics, is it has these kind of little blotches in it, where the color just kind of like streams in a little bit. Putting those little bits in where realistically these things wouldn't be super visible if you turn off the effect layers, I don't think. Not really, no. But with them on, you get these little extra little bits like that. So I think I might actually just add a couple of those in like that. So these little blotches, like chicken pox. But yeah, set a few of these little blotches here so we get some of those extra just little bits of extra little bits of red shooting through here. And they're thin enough that it's just going to add them in, but it's not big enough that it's actually going to receive the edge here all that much. So yeah, those look alright, I think. Let's see, how does that look from a distance? From a moderate distance, that's alright. You got a little chicken pox-esque, but yeah, so there's a few little extra bits which I want to do with the laser. So I added these little kind of flaring out little squiggles here, kind of like how I do the lightning, as I said before, but there's also a few other bits where I'm going to add like a bit of a smoke layer behind it, like a red smoky kind of layer behind it, which should, in theory, emphasize the kind of smokiness of it. And then I might add a kind of like a soft smoke layer around the bottom, maybe something like that, just to kind of give it a little bit more something to it, because the background as it stands is very basic. But yeah, so now I'm probably going to turn that off for now. I'm going to do the painted shading. Tell you what does this look like if I change it to a different type of layer? Definitely not good. So yeah, for now I'm going to move on to the painted shading. We're going to keep this reasonably intense, maybe not as intense as Scarecrow. I'm going to have it be 75%, I think, which is still more than I normally do. So naturally our lights are going to be red, and our darks are probably going to be, I don't know, maybe a kind of a bluier color or something, kind of purpley maybe, something which isn't too far down the spectrum from it, but something moderate anyways. Yeah, I decided to end up making the coat this kind of bluey black color, because I decided it still needed to be a vivid color given how vivid the yellow and the blue are, so I just decided bluey black maybe, something like that. So I was thinking maybe brown, but I feel like no, the brown wouldn't necessarily work here. I think the brown would be an extra color, which I don't think this needs. As it stands, I think that works well enough. But yeah, so yeah, is there anything else I need to go over really here? Because we got to do the painted shading. Then there's just those little few elements at the end. Realistically, this shouldn't take much longer, actually. I was expecting this to maybe take a while, but it might not be too much longer. Because it's the painted shading and the detailed shading and the light line, which aren't terribly long processes. I've got to do my background bits, but I'll do the painted bits of the background in this section, because I'll be using the paintbrushes anyways. So yeah, realistically speaking, I don't actually think there's a huge amount I need to do left. I think it's mostly just the kind of little bits that sell our lighting. So obviously all the lighting is going to be coming directly from the laser, and then as I said before, I might put like a smoky sort of thing around here just to kind of maybe sell the motion a little bit more, something that kind of comes up like that. It's just kind of, I suppose, I'm doing all this stuff by eye, I mean, no pun intended. But yeah, that's kind of what makes sense to me, to kind of maybe smoke up around here just to kind of sell the motion a little bit more, just so the background is maybe a little bit more filled than it currently is. It's pretty basic as it stands. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with just having a solid color background. I do that plenty enough, but here I feel like it doesn't necessarily work. Solid color tends to work in my experience whenever it's a brighter color than what's going on. So as it stands, maybe the flat kind of purplyish black isn't necessarily what we need. Anyways, I'll have a look here and I'll do this painted shading and then I'll be back with the detailed shading. So yeah. Okay, so we've done all of our, God, my brain is fighting me today. We've done all of our painted stuff. So that includes painted shading, which, as I said, is very intense. And so, yeah. The thing is that I was kind of not feeling it as I was going until I got to the blue. And so this is the thing, it's a case of where sometimes you... The way that you think of that, the thing that they sometimes say, whoever they is, this nebulous entity that is they, the thing that they sometimes say is that you have to kill your darlings. Not literally, that's a crime. But in terms of, the idea is that you can't necessarily get too precious about certain things. So, for example, whenever I was going through and doing this, I kind of felt like, I kind of feel like I'm covering up all the colors that I spent so long drawing in. And so basically, as I was going, I kind of thought to myself, oh, maybe this is a bad idea. Maybe I should redo some of this painted shading to just make the shades that I'm putting over everything more adjacent to the basic colors. But as I was going, I felt like, okay, no, this is actually working. And even though, I mean, I had those colors there, and they're still there, you can still see the blue, you can still see the yellow. They're still very much there. It's a case of where these kind of shades that I've put over them have very much kind of overtaken a lot of the original. And on the yellow in particular, it's quite messy. But that's why we're doing our detailed shading, because that will polish things off a little bit and make things look a little nicer. And then the gradient maps as the final step will kind of alleviate the last bits of those kind of messy bits. So yeah, it's a case of where, as I say, sometimes you just have to kind of truck along and it'll kind of work itself out as you go, provided you kind of stick with it. Because the worst thing I feel like one of the worst things you can do with art is be indecisive, because that will very much come across as you're going, is that, oh, there's clearly a lot of indecision happening with how this is being done. And again, you want to kind of commit to your idea, even if you aren't necessarily feeling like your idea is going the best way. Again, of course, this is kind of a case-by-case basis. Sometimes you have to be willing to just say, no, this isn't working, and just stop doing it. But that's one of those things you just kind of learn by doing, is that over time you'll eventually kind of figure out, oh, well, doing this thing isn't going to work, maybe if I do this thing instead, which is something like a salvage job, you can sometimes do those. Like, these are things you just have to learn by doing them and get the feeling for it. Kind of feel it out, know when something isn't going to work. Know pretty early on. I mean, I've had that before, even for art videos. There's been once or twice of where I've been doing an art video and then I've said, you know what, this is really bad. I'm just going to kill this whole thing right now. And then I do. And then later, I'll maybe give it a different go, come at it from a different angle. But yeah, like with this, it was a case of where, I mean, obviously it was far too far in, really, to just call it quits entirely. I'm already, I mean, I'm 4 hours in now to this, 4 hours and 20 minutes, and we're right at the end, so I mean, I'm gonna finish it. But this is the thing, sometimes you're too far in, or something like that, and then you think to yourself, well, I can't just rework it. No, sometimes it's not actually as much work to rework something as you think it will be. For example, redoing some of the shading wouldn't actually take that long. But again, since I stuck with it, it did kind of work out, and again, I'm going to be polishing it up a little bit as I do the detailed shading now. So yeah, I will do this detailed shading and the light line, and then I'll be back to do the gradient maps and all those last little finishing touches. So yeah. Alright, well, that is our detailed shading and our light line done, so that is us done, basically. And yeah, this is the thing, as I said before, the detailed shading does do a lot to kind of tie things together a little bit more, but the thing that will do the last little kick that we need to tie things properly together is the gradient maps, which I'm going to do now. So, let us grab one of these, and again, we're going to want some pretty intense, probably dark stuff is what I'm going to go for here. So we want red. Actually no, we want our darkest. Actually no, we still want it all to be around the red phase, so we want it to be maybe here. And our lightest we want to be bright red. Again, we want this to be very red. So our mid-tone should maybe be about here, and then be about there. Again, it's dark, what we're doing. The visuals of this are going to be pretty dark, so we want it to maybe come down to there. Yeah, that should do, more or less. I mean, this is, again, as I say, very dark. We're looking on overlay, very red. So again, as I say, this does get all kind of brought together with the reds, with how that works. So yeah, I'm going to hit that with a soft light instead. And then we're going to bring it down to 60% is definitely too low. What about 75% on the soft light? Make a duplicate of that. Make it a little less intense. Maybe make it luminosity. Luminosity here is. I'm gonna actually want to lower the luminosity a little bit more than usual. Make it 15%. Don't want it to make things too dark here. And then over the color burn, which is again going to make things very dark. I'm going to leave that at 5%. I wonder if I made this hard light. That's too much, definitely. Vivid light? No. Linear light? Definitely not. No, I think soft light is the only thing we got really for that. Definitely soft light. So right now, I'm going to want to grab my texture and throw that over the top. which should kind of lighten things up a tiny bit, because things are currently, of course, very, very dark, as the gradient maps are wont to do. They typically make things a lot darker, but I mean, yeah, again, our palette here is somewhat of a dark one, because we want to really emphasize the depth of those shadows, and then obviously we want our lighter parts to be very red. So this is kind of what's going to happen with that, but we want the texture to be somewhat subtle, I would say. So I'm going to put an overlay. Put it up to... maybe 30%. Yeah, 30% is quite a lot. Maybe 25%. That's pretty good, I think. Because again, we're going to need it for, especially for like the smoke layers and stuff like that, to kind of disperse those a little bit more. All our lighting and stuff, we want it to kind of disperse that stuff a tiny bit more. So yeah, I think that does do that. Yeah, that was Cyclops. That was Cyclops and lighting, which again, I feel like I made most of the same points as last time, because last time was the same topic, basically. However, we did do a different type of lighting. So last time was obviously very kind of sinister, thematic lighting, whereas this time it's pretty blunt, like straight up. There is a light source and we're emphasizing that light source as much as possible. So, yeah. And I think we did that. I think we got as much out of that one light source as humanly possible. And again, technically speaking, there is, like, logically with the way the smoke is lit as opposed to the sky or background here, the smoke is logically being lit by a light, which is what's casting this kind of purpley kind of color on it, which would then be casting a rim light on Cyclops here, but a very subtle rim light which would only really be tracing this kind of edge really and not much else. So that's what I did. Again, sometimes you just kind of have to think about these things in kind of like in very physical, tangible terms, and that kind of informs it. Sometimes it can make it actually harder. Sometimes you need to take artistic liberty with these things. Sometimes you just need to kind of feel it out and figure it out for yourself. And again, as I say, most of this stuff I kind of just do by eye. I do it by eye and I say, this looks a little better. What would that look like? And then if it looks better, I go with that. That's generally just kind of how I do these things. You just kind of have to feel it out for the most part. There's not much you can really just kind of... There's only so much planning you can actually do with this stuff. Because, I mean, really all I managed to plan is a base sketch. That's all I can actually plan, and then I have a vague idea of how I think it should look in my mind. And then I just try and sort of adhere to that, but then I allow myself enough room to be flexible with that sort of inner idea of where sometimes the idea you have in your mind just isn't going to happen for one reason or another. Either it's just not something that you can really replicate quite the way you wanted to, or you're kind of limited by the scope of time. With me, that's very much one that happens a lot, is that I don't necessarily have the time to create the visual that I necessarily want to create. So in this instance, it was a case of where I managed to get pretty much exactly what I wanted. I had a few different ideas in my mind of different angles that I was thinking of maybe doing this at, but I mean, and technically those would have actually probably been easier. So there was one which I had in my mind, which was a front shot but a lower angle, so he would have been facing upwards like that. So you would have had the laser kind of just shooting off like that out of the frame. Therefore, I wouldn't have had to have drawn his hair, I wouldn't have had to have drawn most of the upper part of the frame. And since it would be a lower angle, you wouldn't actually be seeing as much of his body, because you'd be seeing underside of the pecs and then maybe a little bit of the abs. Not much outside of that, really. You wouldn't probably be seeing this much of the lower body at all. You wouldn't be seeing most of this area down here. But I thought, well, mostly it's actually kind of hard to find good low angle reference. A lot of it's weird looking, very, very weird looking. And that was the kind of limiter on that idea. And I figured, maybe it'd be better to just have another side shot. Because I know what I'm kind of doing with side shots. Maybe, and I was like, maybe it's not the time for experimentation. We're already doing some weird stuff with trying to kind of mix the smoke layers with the glows and all this stuff to try and create this kind of weird sort of heavy light thing going on here. But anyways, Anyways, I've already rambled for like half this video. I mean, this is nearly 5 hours I've been recording for, so I do desperately want to wrap this up. So, yeah. I'll do the outro and then I'll leave you. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed watching me draw Cyclops. I know a lot of people don't like Cyclops. I don't particularly like Cyclops, but I feel like he's definitely an underserved character. I feel like there's definitely stuff you can do with him. At the very least, he has a good design. I quite like this design, even though I made it, in part. I mean, really all I did here was throw on a trench coat onto his normal 90s design. I like the 90s design, and I like trench coat Cyclops, so I decided to make some, and this is where we ended up. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed it. I mean, if you watched this far, you probably did. But yeah, I'll do the outro now because I've been rambling again. So yeah, if you like the video, do whatever it is that you normally do, whether that be liking or not. I would of course prefer if you did like it, but I can't make you do it, so do what you would normally do. And it's the same deal if you want to subscribe. I would of course prefer that, but if you would, for whatever reason, prefer not to, that's fine. You know where the subscribe button is. You can do that at any time, and you've presumably watched a YouTube video before, so I don't need to remind you where it is. But yeah, and if you choose to watch the next video, I will see you next time. And I suppose if you've got any suggestions, I'll hear them if you put them in the comments. Don't just say it out loud. I can't hear that. You would have to leave a comment in order for me to be able to see it. But yeah, it's a thing you can do. Just to remind you. I said it at the beginning of the video as well, I think. But who knows. Anyways, with all that said, I'll say goodbye and I'll leave you. So, bye-bye.